There are two things that humans need to survive. One, of course, is physical survival: water, food, and shelter. The other is more subtle, less thought about, but just as important: mental survival, will, consciousness, and morals, the things that separate humans from animals. But despite these concepts being a fundamental part of what makes us human, despite man being able to climb the tallest mountain, brave the harshest environment, and smile in the hardest of times, he can still not answer the simple question: am I free? The Last Monday is one of the most fucked up games I've ever played. Set in a small neighborhood, the game begins with Garfield asking you to find his keys. Looking in the doghouse, you find the garage opener and open the garage door. Garfield immediately runs over and closes it. Walking over to where he was, you find that he was sitting on the key. He then proceeds to push you into the basement and forces you to paint over sigils, which is already kind of creepy. They're just meaningless tasks, so of course you do them. When you paint over the last sigil, you find a message: I am not the master, implying that the man in the house is not Garfield's master, as Garfield has told you. You then dig up some stuff from the backyard: a ball, a bone, a newspaper, and we kill the dog. Great, okay. You wake up in a flashback to John finding a random person's house. John questions Garfield about why he's here, and he immediately silences him by cutting out his tongue and writing the message from before on the wall. You then show up at somebody's door, cut their power line, silence the dog, kill the parents, and the game cuts to a child's POV where he's found by John and kidnapped. John then burns the house and traps the child in a cage. Skipping ahead, Garfield breaks the child out and teaches him to use fire. He is put in a maze, and upon completing it, it is revealed that the maze is actually a gas station, and that the hamburger people the child was shooting were actually people. John then attempts to exorcise the child and keep the kid away from Garfield, but realizing that it isn't working, John shoots and kills the child, releasing Garfield, which reveals that Garfield is actually a god. At first glance, The Last Monday seems absurd: a talking cat, a key hunt in a locked-up garage. But soon, the game slips into something darker. You're given tasks: paint sigils, dig up bones, kill the dog. At first, they feel like typical game objectives, but over time, they become acts of submission. You do them not because you believe in them, but because you're told to. That's the same kind of coercion Orwell writes about: the slow, methodical destruction of independent thought. In 1984, Winston Smith fights for the right to think, to question, to feel freely. But the totalitarian regime of Big Brother doesn't just demand obedience. It demands love. It demands belief. It demands the remaking of reality. 2 plus 2 equals 5 if the party says so. Similarly, in The Last Monday, the player is constantly gaslit by the world around him. Garfield tells you what to do. John is mutilated into silence. The child becomes a killer. Reality is warped beyond recognition, but you're still playing because you think you must. The game's moment of revelation that the maze was a gas station completely shatters the illusion that, hey, this is a make-believe fantasy world, I can do whatever I want, and shows you the brutal truth. You're killing real people at the whim of this demon. This echoes the kind of twisted clarity found in Winston's torture room. In both stories, the character confronts the truth far too late. By then, they are broken. In 1984, Winston ultimately betrays Julia and learns to love Big Brother. In Last Monday, the child is killed, and Garfield, the hidden god, is released. Resistance becomes meaningless. The system wins. The transformation of Garfield from comic relief to godlike puppeteer isn't just for shock value, it's a metaphor for the things we trust and consume without question. Just as 1984 weaponizes language and history, The Last Monday weaponizes nostalgia. What once comforted us now controls us. What once made us laugh now makes us obey. And that's the horror at the core of both works, not just the loss of freedom, but the loss of the desire for it. The way the human mind can be bent until it forgets what liberty ever felt like. As Winston put it, freedom is the freedom to say that 2 plus 2 makes 4. If that is granted, all else follows. In The Last Monday, freedom is the freedom to say, this is wrong, but you never do. The Stanley Parable is the most metagame I have ever played, not just because it breaks the fourth wall, but because it erases it entirely. You're not just playing as Stanley, you are Stanley, and from the moment you start walking down those sterile office halls, the game starts asking the same impossible question that haunted 1984. If your choices are part of a system, are they really choices at all? At first glance, the Stanley Parable is deceptively simple. You walk, you listen, you either obey or disobey the narrator. But every time you try to take control, whether it's choosing the wrong door, jumping off a platform, or unplugging a machine, the game reacts. It bends, it adapts. And in doing so, it reminds you that your so-called defiance was anticipated, designed, scripted. You're not breaking the rules, you're following the ones that were written for rebels like you. It's even an Easter egg in the game. If you try to glitch out of the game by jumping out a window, the narrator tells you that the glitch was entirely intentional. This is the same contradiction Orwell plays with in 1984. Winston believes his rebellion is authentic, that by writing in a diary or loving Julia, he's asserting his freedom. But the party has already accounted for this. They need rebellion to justify their oppression. The entire system includes the rebellion. It is inevitable, it is necessary, and it is futile. Just like Stanley's choices. Take the freedom ending, where you turn off the mind control machine and escape into the wilderness. It feels like you've won, like you've outsmarted the system. But who narrated that outcome? Who led you to that button? Who told you what the good ending was? The same voice that supposedly imprisoned you. In this reading, the narrator is the mind control machine. He gives you the illusion of escape, and the act of turning him off is just another programmed response, another cage disguised as a key. The only moment in the Stanley Parable where you come close to actual freedom isn't when you obey, or even when you defy. It's when you refuse to play at all, when you turn off the game, when you reject the premise entirely. But even then, what are you doing? Reacting, responding, caught in the orbit of a system that mocks your every move with a smirk and a monologue. And that's what makes the Stanley Parable so brilliant and so terrifying. It's not just a satire of video games, it's a satire of life under structure. It's about how even our most personal choices, rebellion, obedience, curiosity, can be reduced to preordained patterns. How the game, the system, the party, the narrator, they don't care what you choose. They only care that you choose within the parameters they gave you. In The Last Monday, you are a pawn in a divine game, blindly following commands under the illusion that you're making progress. In the Stanley Parable, your every act of rebellion is part of a script, anticipated and contained. In 1984, even your resistance is watched, monitored, and ultimately used against you. These stories, twisted and surreal as they may be, all arrive at the same horrifying truth. Freedom is not about movement. It's not about having doors to open or buttons to press. Freedom is about knowing, and more importantly, choosing your own truth. But if the system controls the rules, the language, the rewards, the punishments, the very terms of reality, then what you're left with isn't freedom at all. It's a sandbox with invisible walls, a maze with only one exit, a smile painted over a muzzle. These works aren't just games or stories, they're warnings. If you're told that you are free, ask, who told you that? And more importantly, what do they gain from your belief? Because maybe the scariest kind of prison is the one where you think you're free.